Hi everyone. I have read your practicum logs in Typhon and provided feedback to you in the system. Know that your grade and your points distribution is going to be in Blackboard, but the detailed narrative feedback about your practicum logs is going to be in the Typhon system. It is important that you go into Typhon sooner rather than later and read that feedback. You may be asked to rework your practicum logs. The primary reason if you were asked to revise your practicum logs is because the connection with your practicum logs to your goals and objectives or to the ANA scope and standards is unclear. The primary reason that you are asked to develop your practicum logs is to demonstrate your progression in meeting your stated goals and objectives. So that's part one. The next piece of it, and you demonstrate your progression towards your goals and objectives through your narrative comments about how you spent your time and your self-reflection. The second part of that reason you do your practicum logs is to demonstrate that the work you are accomplishing in your goals and objectives relates to the accomplishment, to the expectations of the ANA scope and standards. So if your master's degree is focused on nursing administration, then you need to demonstrate prior to graduation that you fully understand what the ANA says about the role of a nurse administrator. So the practicum logs are where the rubber hits the road. It's where you put evidence in your practicum logs about your progression and your goals and objectives, but it also connects with the ANA scope and standards, and prior learning needs to be woven in there because prior learning means you're making progress. It means you're taking information you know and you're adding it to new experiences and you're coming to the other side with a higher level of understanding. That's growth and learning. The practicum logs really demonstrate that journey. So it's important that you get this right. If the logs are audited for any reason, we need to be able to demonstrate that our students are actually doing what we say they're doing prior to graduation. So that's the reason that we're pretty sticklers on getting you in the right place with the right development in your practicum logs. So be attentive to this process because it's not going to change for your next two courses. So focus on making sure that you're getting those details right. And if you are asked to do revisions, you need to make those before your practicum log number 2 is submitted because those have to be cleared prior to practicum log number 2 being submitted. Your papers about conflict were really interesting. The paper is intended to be kind of a direct approach to helping you just think about conflict and the different ways we approach conflict and resolution. So many of you are so familiar with conflict resolution that you wrote some very expanded ideas about excuse me. I think I'm done. Okay, so your papers had some really expanded ideas about conflict resolution, and your personal exemplars really provided some great frameworks for exploring that topic. They were really, really interesting. One of you did a really nice job of connecting the biblical integration. Your classmate Susan wrote this. Matthew 18, verse 15 states, "If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he hears you, you have gained your brother." To me, this means that when we encounter conflict, we should identify the issue and confront it immediately. Otherwise, we can lose an employee, a friend, or an ally. When confronting conflict, we must keep in mind what is stated in James 1, verse 19, which reminds us to be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Otherwise, the conflict can become worse. Leaders must listen to all points of view and deliberate the outcome before deciding on a plan. A leader must be able to address conflict in a non-judgmental tone of voice and dictate as dictated in Proverbs 15, verse 1, "A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. When a leader remains calm and in control of their own emotions, they can be the example for their followers. Sometimes the leaders must be negotiators and peacemakers to resolve the conflict." Matthew 5, verse 9 clarifies this statement by saying, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God." Susan did a really nice job of really giving us a biblical context for how we need to handle conflict as Christian nurse leaders. Susan is spot on when she says we need to deal directly and privately with the ones we are in conflict with, and we need to work to solution without being aggressive, without being threatening, without being demeaning. We need to do it with love and kindness. Sometimes Christians are so willing to forgive and so willing to sidestep things that are inappropriate because we view it in gentle ways. Sometimes we're so quick to forgive that we forget we need to confront as well. And we need to confront the other to heighten their awareness when there is an issue that needs to be explored, when there is an issue that needs to be addressed. And we do that for developmental purposes. So I really like Susan's framework when she discussed that. Did a great job. Okay, so I think that's about it for this week. When you work on your quality project, the part 2 next week, it is a voiceover PowerPoint. So several things to keep in mind. First, the entire purpose of the voiceover PowerPoint in the quality project part 2 is to demonstrate an innovative solution to the existing problem. Your paper was, this is my problem, this is my quality problem, this is how we're currently handling it. Your voiceover PowerPoint needs to be a brief summary of what was in your paper. This is my problem. This is how we're handling it. And oh, by the way, I went into the literature and I found this innovative solution. It needs to be something that isn't currently being done, that's recommended as a novel or best practice or a new recommendation that you have found in the literature that's supportive of solving your quality concern. Your voiceover PowerPoint is going to be no more than 12 minutes. You're going to build your voiceover PowerPoint and you're going to load it into YouTube. Folks, at about 12 minutes, it takes about 30 minutes if it's running well, 15 to 30 minutes, depending on your computer, to get it loaded into YouTube and to create a hyperlink. The hyperlink is what you'll put into Blackboard that I will click on, and I'll go in and I'll grade your presentation. So plan your time accordingly. I would highly encourage you not to be doing this on Sunday night in case you get into a technology issue, a learning curve that you've not anticipated. Do this early, as early as you can. I know you folks are busy, but try to avoid doing this on Sunday night. Your first point of contact for IT help is going to be the LUO help desk, so make sure that you're using them appropriately. If you get tangled up with technology issues, there are some tutorials that are available in our on the assignment sheet that will guide them. You can tell they've just had dinner and they've got lots of energy. The puppies are wrestling behind me. If they get too rowdy, I'll break them apart. Okay, the other thing to remember is this is a voiceover PowerPoint. Keep in mind who your audience is and make your PowerPoint aesthetic so that your audience remains engaged. And that's appropriate use of words, formatting, font, the application of appropriate pictures or graphs or diagrams. Your PowerPoint should be engaging. So think about before you do your voiceover component, make sure you design your slides for an appropriate audience and be thoughtful about that process. I think those are all of my notes. If you have questions or concerns about your grade, if there's feedback that is unclear, I'm happy to answer those questions. I want to encourage you to use the Ask the Professor link for general how do I do ... questions. Very often, if you have a question about something related to an assignment, other students would benefit from that question as well as my answer. So use those. Use the Ask the Professor link as often as possible. Things specific to you or to your grade or specific to your own outcomes, send me a private email. I'm happy to answer those, but we do want to try to group communication as much as we can. Know that I'm here. Know that I'm praying for your success, and I'm looking forward to watching your quality part 2 projects next week. For me, it's one of those fun weeks of grading because I get to see how fabulous you are. Have fun with it and touch base with questions. Take care.